So let's move on to the mortgage payments. The car lease payments and mortgage payment spreadsheets are going to work essentially the same way. So I'm just going to show you on the mortgage payments how that works. And I'll leave the car lease payments one up to you. Give it a try. Okay, so the mortgage payments, we're going to put a function in this cell that calculates our payment on a loan of $165,000 with an interest rate of 5 years and the length of loan of 30 years. Of 5% and a length of loan of 30 years. So we're going to start this out. In my earlier videos, I told you that it's the payment function, but we can look and see if there are other kind of financial interesting. So let's scroll down this list, and there it is. There's that payment function. And so when you hover over these financial functions, it will tell you what, in a little brief snippet, what it's going to do. So it calculates, PMT, calculates the payment of the loan based on a constant payment and a constant interest rate. So we're going to select in here, and this one I would highly encourage you to use the dialog box because it's going to walk you through the different arguments of this function. Now, what's important to know about arguments is you must put them in the order in which Excel is expecting them to be. Otherwise, the software has no idea that you put the rate in a different location than it was expecting. So when you have some really complicated functions, I always use the dialog box, just so that I know that I'm doing it the right way. So it's telling me in each of these boxes, it wants to know what is the rate. The rate is the interest rate for the period for the loan. For example, use 6% divided by 4 for quarterly payments at a 6% annual rate. So our interest rate here is 5%. So I'm going to, because I'm in this dialog box, I can select the cell where my value is, but that's 5% for an entire year. Look at what I'm calculating. I'm calculating a monthly payment, so I have to divide that interest rate by 12. Otherwise, I'm going to say I'm paying 5% a month, and that would be outrageous. The N per is the total number of payments for the loan. So how many loan payments am I going to make? Again, I'm making monthly payments. My terms for the loan is 30, but I actually am making that monthly payment every month for 30 years. So I'm going to take my terms of loan, B4, multiplied by 12 to give me how many months in a year. PV is the present value. So this is the value of, it is a long, complicated financial discussion of present value, but what it really is how much is my mortgage, how much am I borrowing right now? So I'm going to borrow $165,000 as my lease payment, or as my mortgage, right? So if I'm looking, as I'm doing this formula, you'll notice there's some calculations that are showing up right here. So it's saying a negative 885. Well, that's because present value is basically saying, well, in the future, how much did you borrow 30 years ago? And it's saying, again, it's a financial, complicated financial explanation, but essentially what we need the present value to be in is a negative number. So the way I always think about it is, if I were, essentially the bank is taking $165,000 away out of their bucket of money and loaning it to me. So they are down $65,000. Or if I wanted to say my monthly payment is taking out $885. So we just put the negative sign in the present value. These other two pieces, notice that they're different. This is a future value, and then the type is just a number 1 or 0. The future value and type, notice that they're not in bold. The bold are absolutely, the software will not calculate if I don't complete the bold pieces. But the two other pieces, they're optional to include. And on the future value, if you don't include anything in there, it will assume 0 if it's omitted. So the future value is basically, you know, if there's a balloon payment or there's residual value at the end of the loan period. So you're not really paying off the entire loan down to 0. So in this case, it's going to be 0. I'm going to let the software default. And the type is it's either a 1 or a 0. It's going to assume a 0 if you don't force it to be 1. So 1 says the payment is made at the beginning of the period versus the payment is made at the end of the period. Again, it's a financial calculation, and it has to do with when it's calculating the interest based on the current value. Anyway, so I'm just going to let this default. And there we go. There's my $885.76. So that would be my monthly payment on a $165,000 mortgage at an interest rate of 5% for a 30-year length. The car lease payments looks pretty much the same. Again, you're going to use that payment function, but now you have some residual value. That future value is not 0.